Los Angeles, I'm and most Hollywood nights. She goes to California, oh, California.
What you say about Los Angeles?
LA got the people saying.
You're listening to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. It's time for another episode of Corner of the Galaxy from the Box, the show that gets you behind the scenes of the LA Galaxy and into the minds of soccer reporters and MLS experts. Your hosts for the day are Corner of the Galaxy's Josh Guesman and LA Times soccer reporter Kevin Baxter. Let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. I'm your host, Josh Guesman, coming to you on a Thursday, August 10th. A little 8 o'clock start time, and already got the intro wrong, which is nice. This is how you know that I took 2 shows off, and it feels like it's a completely new year, new season, which not, by the way. LA Galaxy still have 10 days before they restart the season after they crashed out at Leagues Cup. We're going to talk a little bit about that long break, but all of the players are in on camp as well, so we want to talk about all those players, get that stuff going for you. And then, of course, everybody wants to know about Neymar. Do I have any inside information? We're going to find out. Thank you for joining us today. Hope everybody is doing wonderful. We're very happy and glad to have joining us tonight the cannon herself, Miss Sophie Nicholaou, on the is it like the eve of the EPL kickoff? Are we 1 day away? How close are we?
It is. It's Christmas Eve. Also, the cannon fired at the panda. Panda's out. Cannon's in for the panda.
I don't know.
Eve.
I hit the wrong button. It's so we were talking before this. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I took 2 shows off. It was like a week.
2 shows.
You know.
Excuse me. PTO. Who did you put your PTO into? Yourself.
I had
so
to.
you approved your own
my,
PTO.
Yeah, I did have to approve.
You know,
my
the
own
listeners
PTO.
really have to approve that for you before you go out. But where did you go? Please tell me you used your time wisely.
I mean, no is always the answer for that. I didn't go anywhere. I had so we all know that it was going to be a big Saturday night for Josh. He's been talking about it for months since he got his tickets to go see Miss Taylor Allison Swift, and so he was very excited about that. But my sister-in-law and her husband were flying in. My 2 nieces were flying in, so we had 8 people. I don't live in a palatial mansion here. You know, we got like three bedrooms. One of them I use for a podcast studio. It's the guest bedroom. We had kids sleeping down on the floor. My oldest is in town too. I had kids sleeping downstairs in the living room. We had 2 people in the guest room. You know, of course, Jake is the only one who's probably comfortable, and he's sleeping in his own room with his own air conditioner and just chilling and relax and do all that stuff. So I was like, I'm going to take some time off and just deal with all that. And it was great. I loved having them here. It wasn't too much. They were only here for 4 days, and they came from the East Coast, which is a huge trip for them to go to come all the way.
Okay, Clark Griswold, listen.
Yeah, right.
It does sound like Christmas. So while you were swanning around with Taylor Swift and enjoying yourself, singing your heart out. By the way, did I tell you a friend of mine directed her style video?
Yes, I know. You told me.
Oh, I did. I tell you.
You told me, and I got angry because I'm like, you've been like half a step away from meeting, Taylor, and it just. I've been very honest, and you've seen me around, rather famous people on a regular basis, and you and I have been around a lot.
I mean,
you more than me, of course, because every time we talk about it, you name drop somebody else in there, and I'm like, oh yeah, she knows this person as well. I actually was talking about you at the Taylor Swift concert, because I was like, Sophie knows everybody.
I was there.
You were there.
I love that.
Yes.
I was there. Well, while you were doing that, I was recovering from the old COVID, by the way.
Oh, did you get the vid?
I did. Yeah. I mean,
Oh.
and when I told people, they were like, is that even a thing anymore?
Yes, it
I'm
is.
like, what? So what? We just kind of like threw it away. Yes, it's a thing. And I had it.
Oh.
And I think I got it at Dave & Buster's. This is why I never want to go to Dave & Buster's, but I had to go because my great nephew was here.
Right.
Who likes going into that Petri dish.
I don't, I mean, I'll be honest. It was the first time I've really had sort of there's a lot of people here was at the Taylor Swift concert at SoFi Stadium with 73,000 people there or whatever it was. By the way, I would just like to point out that if the LA Galaxy needed anybody to be able to run for 90 minutes and probably sing and dance at the same time, I think Taylor Swift could do that. She played 3.5 hours. Sophie, 3.5 hours.
Is she the biggest musical star in the world right now? Is it her? Is it Beyonce?
I don't like to split. I think everybody has their own thing, but I'll tell you, I felt like I was never going to see another like that, a concert like that ever again. I felt like this was a moment in time.
That's how I felt about Michael Jackson at Wembley Stadium. I felt like I'm never going to see anything like that.
Of course you saw Michael Jackson at Wembley Stadium. Why don't you go ahead, tell us what else?
I did grow up in London. It's like you guys going to the Forum and stuff like that. That was my Forum. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Good evening, Wembley.
I get it. No, it was a ton of fun. Want
to talk football? Like, what's going on with the?
Yeah, I mean, I know. Really, what is going on with the LA Galaxy? Players came in. Unfortunate timing on my part, which was, hey, let me not have a show the Thursday basically after the transfer window closes, but I figured everybody would relax, and being the Galaxy weren't doing anything and weren't going to be playing any games and weren't going to be doing all that stuff, I figured we had plenty of time to cover this stuff. Galaxy in the window, I'll tell you, for a team that was restricted with the transfer ban and everything else that was sort of going on, did an unbelievable amount of business. 5 players. And you remember, we have to start with Tony Alfaro, who came in, right? And so that was the first player. The LA Galaxy landed, more towards the end of the window. Listen, Greg Vanney was telling us, hey, maybe 2 to 3 players, right? Oh, maybe 3 to 4 players, right? I don't think anybody had 5 on their bingo card that the Galaxy were going to able to land 5 total. But Diego Fagundez comes in. You got Michael Barrios who comes in. You had Edwin Cerrillo, which is going to be a really interesting one. And Myoshida, we knew about Yoshida before the window closed, but we knew that once the window closed, they would announce Yoshida as well. And so the Galaxy doing that business. And again, 5 players brought in. And I have a little chart, and I'll show you a little bit later, but the Galaxy did that. I know, I got to have a chart,
Touchdown.
Right?
We have a chart.
The Galaxy did some good business without outlaying a whole bunch of cash. So I
have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think this business would have happened if Chris Klein was still here? Is that a fair question? Because the team's going through this. This seems to me, when everyone's looking for a positive step and a move in the right direction and wanting smart people making good business decisions, it seems to me that they've nailed this transfer window. Now, I'm going to learn a lot by you talking a little bit more about a couple of the players who I'm not as educated about. But it feels to me that this is a culture shift in maybe the being smarter on the business side of things. Maybe, I don't know if I'm being melodramatic.
It's weird. It's weird to sort of say, and this is why I would say that it's not easy to answer that question. And maybe that's, people say I'm sitting on the fence. The bottom line is the Galaxy probably wouldn't have been this deliberate to pick in interleague players as much as they would have had it not been for the transfer ban, right? So if Chris Klein was still around, then yeah, it probably still would have happened this way, only because that's where the options were, right? Now, if you heard Greg Vanney talk about it, he really praised sort of the way that his, we'll call them their minions, but his minions, right? You have the guys like Will Kuntz and Michael Stevens and Jovan Karofsky and the team that they put together to be able to locate the players within the league and then actually get deals done within the league. And this is where I always get to laugh, because people are always like, there were articles written about this in The Athletic, which I thought was craziness. If you talk about lack of perspective, which was, everybody's going to take advantage of the Galaxy because, they know that they can only do interleague transfers. And so they're going to jack up the prices on everything. And it's going to be really hard to get deals done. 5 guys. And I would say that I don't think they overpaid for anybody. 5 guys, they didn't. And why is that? Why did people knew the situation the Galaxy were in, Soph, right? It wasn't like they could have, but why didn't they? Because they needed something too. It takes 2 to tango, and it always does. And that's why we see movement happen in transfers all over the world, right? And I was reading an article about like the transfer, just what a transfer window is, and somebody trying to explain it.
And they got at the heart of the thing. Why are there so many transfer deals at the ends of windows, right? There's two reasons. One, people need to make moves because it's closing and nothing. But whenever somebody makes a move, it opens up another move for somebody else, right? So it's this cascade of effects. That's what the LA Galaxy are getting from these, is guys looking to offload or move or shuffle around. That's why there's two people in this willing to make trades.
Also, Josh, games dictate business, right? And you could argue that the Leagues Cup was another example of, we need to make some moves here. If we're going to make a run for the playoffs, we need to make some moves. In the Premier League, watch what's going to happen. The transfer window doesn't shut till the 1st of September. The league starts tomorrow.
Right.
Like you said, there's going to be a flurry of business because the few games are going to kick in. God forbid, there might be injuries, but that's when the demand's going to kick in. That's just the nature of, that's why they call it transfers.
Right.
It's demand, supply.
And that's the whole thing. It's like everybody thinks, and they do this every year with international slots as well, right? They always say, well, the Galaxy always use so many international slots. And so everybody knows they're going to need all these international slots. So they're going to jack up the price. Mm-hmm. That hasn't happened. I mean, yes, you'll see sometimes a spot will go for a little bit higher than others, and every once in a while you're like, oh, you overpay. But when you overpay on a transfer slot or an international slot, it's like overpaying by like $25,000. It's not like you paid $250,000 more in general allocation money. That's not what happens. Again.
So what's the state then of this window, and what kind of, like the TAM and the GAM, and as the Galaxy approach the next window where they're going to be open to DP and some kind of mega deals or on the table here, what does this mean? What's kind of how's it all falling into place?
I've talked about this with people around and near the front office about the mindset, and I think all of these signings continue with the mindset that they had coming into this, which is, are they going to help us in the long term? And we're not going to sign somebody really like short term, unless it's short term with relatively little, risk. By the way, Tony Alfaro, short term. And the reason it's short term is he's a free agent at the end of this year, right? So now the Galaxy brought him out here. He fits in really nicely with the LA Galaxy and what they're trying to do. He's already shown a little bit of what he can do, and I think he's a really good sort of player that will be in a backup position, it seems like, more than a starter if we think that Myoshida is going to be a starter. But that's a short-term deal that doesn't hurt them, right? So they paid the money for it. They get it done. He comes over. He plays for the rest of the season. And then he's a free agent at the end of the year. It doesn't hurt them. It doesn't hurt their flexibility. It didn't hurt their pocketbook, right? The whole deal. It's like, and if he stays and they work out a deal with him, then great. That's great. But they have the flexibility to be able to do that. None of these deals, that, at least as far as I can tell, hurt the flexibility that they have coming up. And even from Greg Vanny, talking to him, and I will also agree with this, he said, I think we did everything pretty financially responsible. So none of this money is going to hurt them. In fact, let's go to the chart, because the chart's fun, and then we'll talk about the individual players, right? Tony Alfaro acquired for $125,000 in general allocation money, right? So you're like, okay, so that's not great, right? But it's not horrible, and I still think there's going to be a good chance that they keep Tony Alfaro at the end of this. He just seems to fit this system really well, and maybe he likes living in LA, right? So they have a probability of giving away some future general allocation money of $375,000 if performance metrics are made. So Galaxy we're going to talk about sort of the guaranteed that they absolutely have to give away, and then the future, which is the performance metric stuff, where if they play a certain number of games, if they score a certain number of goals, it's all in the contract, and we don't know what those are. But there's a possibility of it being up to this much, right? So Tony Alfaro, $125,000. Diego Fagundez, who is a $1 million striker, by the way. A winger, $1 million winger.
That was a coup. That was a good one.
He just signed a new contract with Austin, right? And he apparently, for whatever reason, not fitting into what Josh Wolf sort of had in mind, right? So they get him for $300,000, and they give him Memo Rodriguez. I love Memo. I really did enjoy him. People are going to tell you that, oh, well, he wasn't really... I thought he was good for what you wanted, but they were playing him out of position a lot, so I think he was sort of better in the center, and I don't think he was going to really find too many spots there in the center for him to sort of excel with Ricky Puig there, and Gaston Brugman. We'll talk about Gaston as well, but that type of thing. So they gave away Memo Rodriguez. You got to give to get sometimes, right? Not a huge loss, though. I think everybody sort of says they would take that. So $300,000 in Memo Rodriguez go to Austin. Austin, and then on this deal, Austin has the ability to recapture another 600,000 in performance metrics. That's one to watch because I think that Diego Fagundez is going to be the type of player to meet performance metrics. I think that money could, so now you're in $900,000.
Yeah, it's got great market value. He's got great market value.
He does. There's also a chance that Memo Rodriguez plays and the Galaxy get $150,000 coming the other way. There was performance metrics on both players as they went, which was hysterical. Some of this stuff is just ridiculous, but 150,000 could come back to the LA Galaxy if Memo Rodriguez plays. So that's something. Michael Barrios, the Galaxy gave away a 2024 first round draft pick, which who cares? I'm sorry, but the draft is a joke anymore, and I don't care anymore.
Yeah, so, I agree.
So they got Michael Barrios for a 2024 first round draft pick and $50,000. Was that $50,000? Like I don't know. You could probably go trade in my two cars, and you could get $50,000, and they're not even in good shape, right? Like it's like okay. No problems on that. So, I mean, that seems really good. Myoshida is free. He was a free agent, so he's brought in. That's no money there. Edwin Cerrillo is really super interesting. We're going to talk about that. But $200,000 in general allocation money sent for a 22-year-old. Actually, a pretty good amount with a possibility of another $400,000 going to FC Dallas for Cerrillo. And I will tell you right now, as well as Dallas is holding on to a sell-on percentage as well. Everybody thinks that this kid is probably not going to stay in MLS forever. But when you look at what he's doing and how he's doing it, this still feels like a really good deal. Probably one of the players on this, which has the highest upside. And he's not at 22. You would think that he is a guy, Sophie, where you would be risking a whole bunch of like money on him. And this is a guy who has like 87 games in Major League Soccer, and he started like 62 of them. He's not an unknown. You know what you're getting, and at defensive midfielder, a place where the LA Galaxy needs some help, made a lot of sense. So $200,000 on that, possibly $400,000 on it. So the Galaxy got 5 players for $675,000 in general allocation money and a 2024 first round draft pick. Their future obligations for money is up to $1.375 million in terms of how much money that they would be owed if all the performance metrics hit. But they also have a chance of getting $150,000 for that Memo thing back. So again, guaranteed they had to pay $675,000, which is a great bit of business. Most they're sort of in that is into that $1.92 million if you add everything together of what they were able to do in this. And I don't think they're going to be anywhere near that whenever it all pencils out in 2024. So. Can
I just say you may have been away for a couple of shows, but you have not lost your spreadsheet edge at all.
I did. Okay. I did feel like I was missing the spreadsheets a little bit, so I went and did that one.
It all looks lovely on paper,
right? You want to talk about these guys?
Who's playing, Josh? How does it? What's the start? How does it affect the team? What does this look like?
Let's go and talk player by player, and we'll sort of be able to, I think, put together some of that. The LA Galaxy announced that Diego Fagundez was joining the LA Galaxy August 1st. That's when that trade sort of became official. I do like this little movie poster thing they're kind of doing.
Yeah, I do too. Very much so. I was like, that's good marketing. It's best I've seen in a while, to be honest.
Here you go. Just to pay attention to Diego Fagundez. First time in the league is 2011. It's now 2023. 13 years in the league? Something like that. It's right around there. Whenever he finally comes in. 347 games played. 262 games started. Almost 20, just a little over 23,000 minutes in the league. 68 goals, 67 assists. All right? Mm-hmm. This is a real player, and he has been. And if you remember him for New England Revolution for all those years, you should remember, 2013, 13 goals, 7 assists. You sort of try to pick out some of these things. Austin, he had 7 goals and 5 assists in 2021, 6 goals and 15 assists in 2022. This year, just 2 goals and 2 assists, right? Sort of following the trend that Austin is. But if you go and look at sort of what he's been able to do, he sort of seesaws a little bit back and forth. He has 2 good years, maybe 1 sort of down year, 2 good years, 1 sort of down year. Whenever you look at what he's doing, I think it's reasonable to say that in the system that the LA Galaxy are running and the fact that Gaston Brugman is out, and we got information on Gaston Brugman that he had successful surgery. Now there was hopes that it would just be a repair. There was hopes that it would just be this removal of his knee that had this problem in it, and that they could just take this piece out. And if they took the piece out, he could be back in like 3 to 4 weeks. But they were pretty sure that it was bad enough it was going to need repaired, and repaired is 3 to 6 months. The Galaxy announced that he had successful surgery and that he would miss the remainder of the season, so we could
That's a tough one.
Yeah, we could at least sort of figure out that they probably had to go in there and repair things. So he's out. That's now, let's see, Chicharito season-ending injury, Cáceres season-ending injury, and then Brugman season-ending injury. 3 starters that all had season-ending injuries.
And very much a spine in the team, front to back. That's a really, really big deal. I like this signing. I think, listen, league experience. Would you say durable? Is that fair? A durable player?
He seems to be. I mean, 19 games played, 14 games started already for Austin right now, 1,031 minutes. 34 games played, 33 games played, 2020, 19 games played, 25 games played, 33, 32, 34, 30, 31, 31, 20. I mean, he seems like he's a durable guy, but also in a position that they need help at, because if we watched how they were playing in Leagues Cup, Douglas Costa was sitting more in the center to sit next to Ricky. So now they need another winger on the outside. We talk about flexibility. Think about this. So if Douglas Costa's contract is up at the end of the year, he's going to move inside to pair with Ricky Puig. You're going to have Diego Fagundez on one side. You're going to have Tyler Boyd on the other side. So you got 2 now speedy wingers on both sides with Douglas Costa and Ricky Puig in the center, and then either Uri Rosell or Edwin Cerrillo. We'll talk about Cerrillo in as sort of the holding midfielder. You got to find a place for Mark Delgado. Mark Delgado might come in there as well. There's all these little options, they said. But what happens whenever you get rid of Douglas Costa and you grab Gaston Brugman and you put him back in whenever he's ready for next season is that you're able now to use Diego Fagundez as a TAM / like high elevated player on the wing. You don't have to use a DP spot on that anymore. So the Galaxy are going to have 2 DP slots open, and they kind of get to choose where they want that to be, because they've kind of put together a pretty decent midfield, or at least decent wingers with Boyd and Fagundez there. And you could go out and get a DP winger and make Boyd a backup, and Boyd's only making $225,000 a year, but his contract is also up at the end of this year. So you don't know if he's staying either. Again, the flexibility is there, though, and you can see that it's there. So,
yeah, it feels like signings that are going to improve the team's opportunity to make it into the playoffs. Beyond that, I don't think anyone's. That's why I asked you the question at the top of the show. Right now, beyond that, yes, everyone knows there's this larger, bigger picture, and LA Galaxy have kind of fallen behind a little bit on maybe. I think the latest commercial efforts and the marketing has been a lot better than it had been last season and the season prior. I think that's fair to say, Josh. But on the pitch, they've definitely, when you're seeing what's happening in Miami, when you're seeing what's happening in a lot of these new markets, even, I think you'll get to Jalen Neal in a little bit. But developing these homegrown, they have an opportunity to kind of make a star, right? A local boy into a star. But LA Galaxy also needs stars. It's so important they make the playoffs this season, because do you think the 5 stars are enough as the attraction to attract like a superstar type player right now if they miss the playoffs? Do you think it has to be part of the toolbox, the selling kit, the pitch deck, the PowerPoint?
Right, I think it helps. I mean, it certainly helps. Listen, I always think that that the location that the LA Galaxy are in or LAFC are in really drive a lot of the interest, right? And so, and that sucks if you're, Salt Lake City. If you're Kansas City trying to get these huge big name stars, and there's even a question about whether the LA Galaxy should go out and get these huge, massive, big name stars, that type of thing. We'll talk about Neymar here in a second, but I don't know. It helps, and that's all. I think that's what it does. It makes it an easier.
I think they
sell.
Can't afford to not make. I think it'll be really.
It's a steep climb right now. I mean, seriously, I think the Discord, 12 games left, right? I think the Discord sort of figured out that it was basically 6-3-3. The Galaxy have to go 6-3-3 in the 12 games. I think
this team can do it with these signings, and I believe that. Here's what we know why I say that, because they did it last season. They went on a run. When the chips were down and the pressure was on, and they knew that they just had to go on a run, they did that. And there was something that galvanized this team. It's almost like they take that cup mentality, right? Over a period of games now in a long season, they just can't click to be at the top. But there's something that's happened over the last season, and they've proven that they can do that. And I think they can do it again because of this transfer window.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of this stuff hurts. I would caution that I don't know that any of these are game changers, right? I think
No, but Ricky's a game changer,
He is.
and they'll always be in with a shot if they can keep games tight. He's a game changer player.
Yeah. By the way, wanted to get to this super chat from Philip. Philip, $5 super chat says MLS's goofy rules to get Neymar to the Galaxy. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. There you go. See, look, a little T Swift, T Swizzle stuff. Good job, Philip. Extra point for you.
I'm not really familiar with all of her music. I have to say, I'm not. I liked it when she was kind of country girl.
I enjoy. I'm a little bit country Taylor, a little bit rock and roll Taylor, which is why the Red Album is for me. I will tell this.
You're a hybrid.
I am. As much as everybody gives me crap and says that I'm a Swiftie, I need to bow down and understand that I'm a pure amateur. Whenever I went there and I saw some of these young ladies singing and dancing next to me for like 3.5 hours, knew every single word to every single song. And like, I'm good at like 70% of the words. I was there for most, I was up for most of that concert. I was there. I was paying attention, but good
We
Lord,
believe you,
I'm
Josh.
I'm an amateur.
Listen, you're putting up a worse defense than LA Galaxy's defense right now. Just quit while you're ahead.
Amateur compared to those ladies.
I don't believe that for a second, but we'll leave it at that.
So anyway, I don't know that any, like I said, I think these are good signings. I think like you look at something like Michael Barrios, right? Now, here's a guy, Sophie, whose I think entire career has been just to punish the LA Galaxy. Like this guy used to score goals on the LA Galaxy like it's not hard. And it would be like disappointing. You'd go to Colorado and you'd be like, oh, maybe this time we're going to get something out of this game. And then Michael Barrios would be out there scoring stupid goals. And you're like, I hate you. So yeah, 20 games played so far. Yeah, 20 games played so far in 2023 for Colorado. 2 goals, 2 assists. It was funny. This was one, and I had tipped everybody off. I had heard from a source that the LA Galaxy weren't done. We basically knew that that Fagundez was coming. I think we knew that Edwin Cerrillo was coming as well. That was one that was out there, but Marco Barrios that hadn't hit. And so it didn't hit until the next day when the LA Galaxy announced. And I was talking to somebody and they're like, there's one more out there. And I'm like, really? I'm like, well, like, who is it? Blah, blah, blah. And it was being shy. They're being a little shy with me. And I'm like, okay, cool. And they're like, it's somebody who can play as a forward, certainly, but can masquerade as a striker if you need one. And so I was trying to figure out who it was. I didn't, by the way. But I knew that there was one more signing coming and I let everybody know that. But Michael Barrios.
You like it?
For $50,000 in a first-round draft pick,
experience.
That's like throwing $1 on a lottery ticket. It's like, okay, cool, and if it hits, then I made some money, and if it doesn't, then it costs me $1. This is
it's a no-brainer. This one,
it's low risk. It's just low risk. That's all. It's low risk with some upside, and I think that when you make deals like that, you're not hurting yourself. I think Marco Barrios could come in here and be a really good sub for the LA Galaxy. If you think of Dejan Joveljic starting, and I think that there is a real focus to make sure that Dejan gets his chances for the rest of the season to be the goal scorer that I think that they think that he can be. I think he can be it too. It's just he hasn't shown it. But I think that Michael Barrios will be there to help in that
super
role.
Sub.
Yeah, and I think
they need a super sub, and Dejan was a good super sub. And starting is a lot different, and the responsibility and accountability, to be engaged as a starter is just completely different. He relished coming on as the hero.
Yes.
We saw the celebrations. He loved it. But now he's being asked to be a number one, and he's not adapting into that number one role. And I don't believe it's because of lack of talent. It's all here with him.
Yeah.
That's my take.
He needs another dinner with Sasha Klesh, and Sasha used to have him over and have some dinners with him. And
we'll buy him dinner.
Right, yeah, whatever he wants. But here's the thing about Barrios is very much like more direct. He's a more direct guy. He's going to want to run in behind. He's going to want balls in there. And I think the Galaxy can use that a lot, especially later in games.
But now you've got Boyd and Fagundez. I mean, that, allows
huge.
for a plan B,
Yeah,
playing the higher ball.
So you have 2 outside wingers now. They're able to cross and able to get assists. You have Costa, who's going to parade and masquerade inside with Ricky Puig, and Ricky can create and do that stuff. You put somebody like Dejan Joveljic or Michael Barrios, with Barrios sort of running in off the back shoulder, being more direct, looking for routes and spaces. He's quick. He's fast, right? Those are 2 different things. And I swear to God, if I do a podcast on my dying day, I'm going to get people to understand quickness and fast and overall speed are 2 different things, right? So he is both of those things. He's quick. He's fast. He's annoying. And
He's like a mosquito.
Oh, so annoying. I mean, he's not a big guy. He's always sort of been that way. So anyway, I like it. Little photo of Cerrillo and Michael Barrios in there. And the other thing is that as we move to Cerrillo and Edwin Cerrillo, again, young kid. We talked about it already, but I said this. This is not a lie. He has 87 games played in Major League Soccer. He has almost 5,500 minutes played, 62 games started, right? He has almost 1,400 minutes just this year, 19 games played, 15 games started for FC Dallas, 2 assists, right? And listen, he's a defensive midfielder. He's not scoring goals. Don't look at that stat as what you want, but he seems to really fit in with what the LA Galaxy want to do, and they need a guy. They need a 6. They need a guy who's going to sit and be a defensive midfielder who's going to come in. I mean, Uri Rosell is great, but Uri was like running out of gas in the last game, and it's probably one of the reasons that the LA Galaxy sort of collapsed down sort of that end with Vancouver is that Rosell had no more left in the tank, and he's not that guy. Now you put in a 22-year-old who's used to covering box-to-box stuff, playing the defensive midfielder stuff. The Galaxy need that help in front of the back line. Edwin Cerrillo could very well be that guy, but I was talking to somebody about Cerrillo, and they were like, I said, can this guy cover for Gaston Brugman knowing he's out? And it's like, listen, it's going to be an adjustment for him to sort of be in a team like the LA Galaxy and to be a starter. But in the long term, he's the starter. In the long term, he's the guy who can come in and sort of be that rock in that defensive midfielder place, and they see like really good things from him. And it's one of the reasons Dallas put a sell-on percentage on his contract too, because they don't think, again, I don't think anybody thinks that in the next 4 years he's still going to be in Major League Soccer, right? And that he could be going to Europe or Germany or somewhere else, that type of thing. It's just he's not one of these like super high prospects, but if you look at Dallas and what Dallas has done in terms of moving players out of the league and into some, this is a guy who has the ability to move out of the league. He was playing for Dallas. He was starting for Dallas. So
do you think he's an X factor?
No, not yet, but I think he could develop into one. I think in the next couple of years, I mean, he's 22, so like in the next 2 to 3 years, he's 25 and he's playing that position. He's been playing it for a couple of years now. That to me says that there's some upside. I think it's a question mark about how impactful he is this season. But again, he was playing for Dallas and doing a pretty good job. So if he can find his place in this Galaxy team, I think he'll do fine. I don't think he's going to be closer to like a Mark Delgado in terms of quiet. You're not going to notice a lot from him, but you're
works in the shadows type player.
Absolutely. And he's going to be one of those guys who, when he's not out there, you're sort of like, oh wait, the Galaxy are missing him right now. It's one of those, you notice him by absence, right? Yeah. And so I really do like sort of that. We talked about Myoshida, and this is a guy who's coming in to be a starter. I mean, he was sort of really interesting dude. Watching him talk on his press conference and stuff like that, speaks English very well. Does a great job. I imagine he speaks like 12 languages. It just seems like he exudes that confidence. But they had Japanese media in the press conference as well, able to talk to him. And he was like, "Oh, I get to speak Japanese now." He goes, "Good, a lot easier for me." This whole deal. So he's got the jokes. He's a
That's
very
great.
thoughtful guy.
You'll probably see the Japanese media quite a bit over the coming weeks.
We were talking about this in the Discord, and I thought it was really interesting that people had these takes. If you saw Myoshida, and again, a guy we've talked about, has the international experience very similar to Cáceres, right? The international experience for the World Cup, captaining a World Cup team for Japan, playing, I think, 130, hold on, I have it, 154 Premier League games. That's a ton of experience. Serie A, 72 games. Japanese League, 71. The J1 League, 71 games. The Eredivisie, 54 games. Tons of international experience, and he you can see when you talk to him too, so he exudes that experience.
Oh yeah.
But we were talking because the LA Galaxy had Myoshida out to Angel Stadium where he threw out a first pitch, right? And you're like, oh, okay, cool. The whole deal. And people were sort of like, oh, why would they do that with the Angels and blah, 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 the whole deal. And I'm like, wait a minute. You guys know who plays for the Angels, right? you know Otani plays for the Angels, and that there's a huge Japanese presence at every single Angel game. My mom has season tickets to the Angels, so I get firsthand look at all of the people who come to watch Otani play. And so what wonderful marketing. Whoever thought of this is a dang genius. And by the way, it wasn't hard, but just the fact that they got it done, and they got it done in the amount of time that they did. But to have Myoshida go out there to an Angel game and be like, hey, I'm a Japanese player. Hey, Japanese fans that are here to see Otani, I'm a Japanese player, and I'm going to play up this road at Dignity Health Sports Park, and you can come watch me play soccer. And now there's multiple reasons for you to be there. And the
See, I told you they were better at marketing these days. I love it.
But
Absolutely love it.
But Sophie, I got an argument, and they're like, "Oh, well, they're just doing it to target the Japanese fans." And they're like, "This is another signing where all you're trying to do is target a certain group of people."
Are
I'm
you
like,
kidding me? Do they know that? Do they know anything about this player? Seriously.
I was like, wait a minute. He has the exact same resume as Cáceres, basically, right? I mean, they're almost carbon copies. Even age, everything was like carbon copies. It made sense for them to put him in. But now that he's on the team, and now that you have him, why wouldn't you send him over to Angel Stadium and have him go throw out the first pitch and be, part of sort of the Ohtani madness that's over there? That makes perfect sense.
Totally makes perfect sense. Are you joking me? Ohtani is like breaking all sorts. He's changing baseball. That guy, it's ridiculous. And with the Japanese connection, this guy's also, he's not just chump change. I mean, he's led his team in a World Cup. I mean, this is a great signing. And what is wrong? Okay, so Messi can go to Inter Miami.
Right.
And bring whatever, but LA Galaxy can't sign a Japanese player.
The Argentines.
Who, by the way, I just don't. I love this signing. Absolutely love it.
So awesome. The other thing is that Myoshida is also out there, and he had a picture of him at Angel Stadium, and on this day he goes, today is the 78th Atomic Bomb Memorial Day in Nagasaki. He was born in Nagasaki, so he goes, pray for all the war victims, wishing a peaceful world. He goes, 78 years later, today we are enjoying sports together. We only can enjoy in a peaceful world. What do you want to leave for your children? I mean, already I already love this guy. He's out there. He's like, we need to, this war thing ain't gonna work for people. All right. And now we're playing
also
baseball.
Claim him before the Dodgers do. Claim him before the Dodgers do. Get him
in there. And so I really liked Myoshida and sort of what he had to bring. So we've talked about him a bunch. I expect that he's going to start. I expect that Jalen Neal will start next to him. And it looks like Jalen Neal has been sitting a little bit. He's had the groin injury that has been recurrent. Remember, with the U.S. men's national team, he was going to play, and then they're like, "Oh, excuse me, he has a groin injury," and then everybody was like, "Oh no, he's injured." And it's like it's the same thing he's had. He has this ongoing groin thing, and so resting him during this is the best way to get him to recover. So, if Jalen Neal doesn't play until a week before the Galaxy are actually supposed to play a game again, that's the best thing that can happen for Jalen right now.
Yeah, it's good. It's a tricky time, isn't it? Because it's like starting a new season. This is going to be like starting a new season, and that comes with a lot of challenges. And also, though, the benefit of this is they've got new signings and they're able to integrate them into the team, and they have time, which maybe they wouldn't have had before.
Can I play like the devil's advocate a little? I know that's how everybody's going to spin it, and even I would tell you that, hey, now they have a chance to get these guys in there. They get to train, and the Galaxy. Listen, the best thing that could have happened would be that the LA Galaxy were still in Leagues Cup and they were getting these guys game time.
Yeah, but they haven't.
Yeah, I know, right? But let's not lose sight of that fact that it's not as good as it could be. As good as it could be would be the Galaxy are still in Leagues Cup and they're getting game time with these guys to integrate them before. Because what's going to happen on August 20th? You're going to get guys who, yes, you've trained a lot, but haven't been in any games with. And games are different than training. Everybody will tell you that. There's a different level, a different speed, a different everything, right? So I am very concerned coming out of this break with Real Salt Lake having done what they did in Leagues Cup, and now looking to that first game is that you're going to have a team, maybe they're a little more tired than the LA Galaxy. I mean, you can certainly say the rest helps. But you're going to have a team like RSL come into Dignity Health Sports Park, and you're going to have the Galaxy trying to integrate, 3 new pieces into the starting lineup, however they want to, sort of do that and start it. And that's going to be a battle for them. I think this 12 games is very difficult. I think not making any advancement in the Leagues Cup is a huge, huge hurdle that they failed to clear. And I think that hurts them. Again, 6-3-3 is what you're looking for the LA Galaxy in the last 12 games. I mean, let's face it. The Galaxy winning 6 games in a span of 12, so winning half of the games that they're supposed to play. That seems like we haven't seen that this year, right? It's one of those things. It's like I haven't seen that.
Which is why I think the time's important for Vanni. I really do, because this is a monumental task, and for me, his job should be on the line. If you miss the playoffs and you've had all of the transfer windows you have. And, there's no excuse for this latest transfer window. There's been plenty to strengthen this team and build on this team. You've got to find a way to make the playoffs. For a 5-star team, this is unacceptable to miss the playoffs. So yeah, and that's why I think he's had time to pull this together. What's he going to do? You know, and now I think he's got the ability to have a plan B. I know fans have kind of questioned subs and timing and a lot of all of those different things.
I think the depth, I think if you're talking about depth and what happened in this transfer window, what did the LA Galaxy really get out of the transfer window? They got depth. Not in every position that they wanted, not probably in the way, and there's a lot of starters in here, but when you have a starter, that means you push somebody else down into sort of the the depth role, and so I think that there was some of that happened. I think they addressed almost all the needs that they really needed to, outside of getting a designated player as a striker and sort of doing that. And, with limited options, and trust me, I had the conversations many times, they just didn't feel like they had enough options. And I get that. You don't want to make a choice just to make a choice, especially if, and Sophie, I think you're dedicated to it. Which is, hey, the playoffs are that minimum bar, and I agree with you. But I think right now, everything they're doing is sort of doing it, this saying, yes, this will help us right now, but most of this is that way that we're in a good position in 2024 as well. Which, by the way, should always be the case. You should always be in that situation where you're thinking about not just helping me now, but helping me next year as well, not putting myself in a bad spot next year. How do I get out of this? And so many times with designated players, the LA Galaxy have been like, how do I get out of this? Right? Look at Giovanni Dos Santos or Jonathan Dos Santos, right? How do I get out of these contracts? How do I move? I mean, Douglas Costa was even that way, except for the last, month or so. The recency bias takes hold there. So I really think that that it's going to be tough. I think they got depth. They didn't get that one goal scorer. I was predicting that the Galaxy would go as far as their striker would take them, and right now the striker's not taking them anywhere. And if you're going to rely on Dejan Joveljic, then know that you may not be getting anything. You get more from the wingers, but I don't know that you get any more from Dejan, which is tough. That's.
I think it's time. I think now is the time to put the microscope on the manager. This is where he gets paid the bucks to find a way to make it to the playoffs. And I don't think that going into 2024, that if he doesn't, he deserves another shot. I think he's had plenty of shots. I think he's had plenty of time, and I'm a fan. I like him. He's really cool, authentic in the pressers, and excellent in that regard. But results matter, and he is accountable and responsible for the results. And it's pressure's on for him now. And I think that he doesn't even, if he doesn't make the playoffs, you can't even talk about a legacy. It's chapters. It's not even an era. It's just chapters, and chapters where really they didn't achieve much.
Yeah, and certainly you see the dip and everything that's happened here. I'll say this: it'll depend on how the LA Galaxy go down this stretch about Vanny. If they collapse and there's nothing there and there's no fight there, then yeah, I think the job is on the line. I think if they're fighting for stuff, I fully expect right now, the way that the Galaxy have gone and the way that I think they're planning. And again, this isn't my opinion. This is not what I think. This is what I think the Galaxy are thinking. But in my mind right now, I think that if they make this run, if they get close, if they get to the playoffs, that type of thing, it's really going to depend on how the team looks down the stretch about whether or not Greg Vanny's back in 24. But I'll tell you this, that if he does start next year in 24, that leash will be short. That's not a thing, right? They can't start the way that they started this year, and he can expect all of the leeway that he has had for all of the time is slowly disappearing. In fact, you can watch it sort of ratchet itself out, and you're like, okay, this is it. This is all, it's like a boat pulling away from the dock with the line still connected to the dock. You can watch the rope like start to tighten and tighten and tighten. You're like, you see it happening. And so it depends on how they play down the stretch about whether or not that they run out of slack or not, I think. That's certainly what I think the Galaxy are thinking right now anyway. But there's other things that are really big that could happen in this offseason too, Soph, which is talking about like new presidents. And I say presidents with an S because I think there might be co-presidents, one on the business, one on the sporting side. That could affect what happens in 2024 with any coaching staff, with any front office, with anything like that. There's visions that everybody has a vision, and you bring somebody else new in there, and they're going to have a vision for how it should go. And does Greg Vanny fit that vision? Does any of this fit there? How does that produce itself? I think there's going to be a lot in the off season this year, a lot to keep us busy, certainly, and talk about. So, we can talk about that a little bit. One of the other things I want to talk about, it was kind of interesting. I saw this, but I always like highlighting art. Is there something about art in sports? I love art that it has like this base in sports. So I'm a very big, like you see something and I'm like, oh man, that's pretty cool. But David Godino, and I believe that's how you said it, put out this poster with Jalen Neal called The Future of Los Angeles. I just wanted to highlight it because I think it's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. It's a very Art Deco. It's very Chicagoan, actually.
It feels, but that's there's LA landmarks back there, right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, of course.
But it's a very conceptualized version of like LA
it.
and everything. I like the pink, quite honestly. I like that. Sort of plays off of the white jerseys and Jalen Neal being there. And I just can't say enough about the young kid who has sort of been one of the real highlights of this year. He has. He's fun to watch. He's nothing phases him. So like, this is a guy, this might make some people upset. I'm sure he gets angry whenever he loses. I don't want people to be like, oh, well, he just does. He's so level. He is just level, not too high, not too low. I think for defenders, that's like the perfect sort of, you don't want them getting up. You don't want them getting down. You're like, just nice and level, Jalen. And anywhere he goes, Sophie, he looks like he's in play. He goes up to the U.S. men's national team, plays on the Nationals, and he's still hitting balls through the center. He's still finding and breaking lines. He's still, pretty good defensively in a lot of things. That's a huge level jump that he took this year. And he's just looked comfortable in it the whole time.
Looks like I really even though I couldn't stand the teams he played for, I enjoyed watching Rio Ferdinand play. The way he'd bring the ball out the back, the elegance on the ball. Maldini's my favorite defender of all time, and probably a lot of people. Just the elegance on the ball, the ability to see everything in front of you, and carrying the ball out the back is really important in terms of being a modern day defender. But he's got the mentality for this game. He certainly is very level headed, and a lot of that has to do with his family as well.
Right.
And you love to see it. You love to see them promoting with all these guys coming in and stuff. Josh, it's always, you got the homegrown player. Like I love it. I love to see it and promote him as much as possible.
Great kid. I'd love to have him on the podcast here. I was trying to get some people on the podcast for tonight and do some stuff, and it just, I just don't have like the bandwidth just constantly beat on people until they come on the show. It's never just like, hey, would you like to come on the show? Yeah, sure. And it's like always easy. It's always like, hey, let me check. I have to check with this. I have to do that. Let me ask them. Let me ask this. And it's this whole process that you always have to go through. And I used to just be like, hey, did you talk to that person yet? You have to like badger people in order to get stuff to be done. And I'm just like,
well, I'm here. I mean, just saying, you went through all my people. I mean, my PR, my assistant, the interns.
Yes.
I mean, it's an army. It's an army of folks.
Yeah, when I was complaining about Sophie, who I didn't text this morning and said, hey, you want to do a podcast tonight? And she wrote me back, yeah, I can do it. I'm like, okay, cool. That's
good stuff.
One other thing that I want to point out is MLSPA came out, the Major League Soccer Players Association, came out with their list of free agents for the 2024 season. One, I invite you to go look at that list to see who are the big free agents and who you want to add. If you're an LA Galaxy fan, there's lots of that. But from the LA Galaxy, Tony Alfaro, Kelvin Leerdam, and Uri Rosell are all eligible for free agency. Usually, I would say this: there are almost 30 teams in Major League Soccer. There's a lot of places for guys to go. So usually if there's somebody who's a free agent, I would suggest that they will not stay with the club they're at. Usually. Maybe 25% of the time they're going to stay at the club they're at, and the other 75% they're going to be lured off by somebody else who wants to pay them, blah, 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 the whole deal. Never know. Depends on the player, depends on the situation, all that stuff. And maybe the LA Galaxy are like, sign some of these guys to contracts before the free agency even comes up. Hey, Tony Alfaro, we'd love to have you. You seem comfortable here. We like you. Come on, and Tony's a Cal State Dominguez Hills guy too, so you have a chance there, right? Uri Rosell seems to probably like playing in Greg Fanny's system, so maybe you have a chance there. Kelvin Leerdam, that's a tough one. Leerdam is such a good backup, and he's done such a good job for the LA Galaxy in those sort of backup roles, and you'd like to see him. I love defenders. You'd like to see him stay. I would love to see him stay because I think that's those depth pieces that you really want. Look. He was able to fill in at center back for how many games, right? And the Galaxy didn't have any center backs, and he played great. For what he was trying to do, he played great. I would love to see him stay, but that's a guy who will clearly get lured away by somebody and get paid maybe more than
You'd think so. You'd think so, wouldn't you? Yeah.
He's the nicest guy, too. That's another defender, so just like this the whole time. He's
You
like,
love your defenders. It's
man,
so true.
man,
Your man crushes.
I played defender whenever I was playing soccer growing up. I was a defender. I was a center back and then a right back, and I would play, like a right midfield sometimes too, in that sort of way. But I loved it. Defenders get such a bad rap. You stop 99 out of 100 chances, right? And that one gets through and you lose the game 1-0. A striker misses 99 attempts out of the 100 they have. They score the game-winning goal, and they're the hero.
Totally agree.
It's like, oh, okay. Of course, that's how it goes.
Totally agree with that.
So that's something to sort of watch with that free agency and everything else that is going on. Let's see. Let me go over to the schedule, and then we'll talk about Neymar to close us out, because why shouldn't we? The August schedule coming up again, the LA Galaxy hosting Real Salt Lake. That game's on August 20th, so still 10 days away from when we're recording on a Thursday night. Let's see. Then they host Chicago. They're away to San Jose. And then you look at some of these games. Home to Houston, home to St. Louis, away, quote unquote, away to LAFC. That still stays home. If you really think about it, you still sleep in your bed at night, right? So still semi-home there, Soph.
That is a rough schedule. My goodness.
Houston, I think, is, if we're talking about where you think the LA Galaxy can get points, the RSL game coming out, you have to get points in that game. Sorry, I would love to tell you that you don't, but you have to get points in that game. I think
got to win those 2 home games.
Yep, I think Chicago is a game that you can win. Going up to San Jose is always tough, so we'll see. That's one of those you're looking for a draw somewhere. Houston, that should be a win at home, but Houston always plays the LA Galaxy difficult, and it's always a pain. St. Louis, one of the top teams, if not the top team in the Western Conference. So they're in there. You're playing LAFC, one of the top Western Conference teams. You're playing Minnesota at home. That should be a game you should win. You're away to Austin. Austin has been bad, but the LA Galaxy have been worse. But then Austin sometimes is worse, and it's just, that's back and forth this whole season. So that'll be an interesting one to watch. LA Galaxy hosting Portland. You hope that you can win that game, right? LA Galaxy away to Seattle, definitely losing that game, especially in October. Minnesota away to Minnesota, tough game. I mean, we talk about the Galaxy losing just 3 games, Sophie, and I can find games in here. I can find probably 5 or 6 games where I could see them losing easily. And then the last game, of course, why not play Dallas at home? That's fan appreciation night. Do we have to go over the record of fan appreciation night? I have the chart somewhere. I'll go dig it back up whenever we get closer.
But what about the teams around them? I mean, it's not guaranteed that they're going to go on runs either, right? Is this maths based on the teams around them doing similarly, or what?
It's based on just the fact that like you're trying to get to 48 points or 45
the points.
Yeah,
okay.
It's based on points, because usually the points get you in, right? And I'll tell you right now, the Western Conference is not, there's some elite teams sort of up at the top, but even then, I expect anybody in the Western Conference to be able to lose or win on any single given day. There's not somebody out there who I'm like, oh, they're definitely going to win. The Western Conference is a mess. There's mediocrity at every turn, and there's just some that are slightly above mediocre and some that are slightly below mediocre. The Galaxy right now, I mean, I know it sounds crazy where they're sitting in the table, but they're slightly below mediocre in what they've been doing, but they've been playing at a rate that should be above mediocre, that's why it's all backwards and upside down this season. So, I mean, get the wins, 6 wins. Get 6 wins and
it's possible.
Let's see what else happens. But 6 wins is so crazy whenever we think about it.
They did it last season, so I'm going to say, you know what?
Do it again.
Do it again, yeah. And get hot. You got to score goals. They got to be better at scoring and, taking their chances. If they take their chances, they can win games. They really can.
All right, so now let's talk about Neymar, right? Because this is all that everybody's been talking about. It was funny because we've been seeing Mbappe and Neymar's name now kicked around for like the last 3 weeks, and it's just been it's over and over and over again. We've been seeing it, and it's funny because when you do what I do, or you do what Kevin does, or Sophie, or stuff like that, you have to ask people questions about this, knowing that most of the time they're going to laugh at you, right? And you're like, yeah, I know. I think I literally started a text message today with, so I saw this thing on the internet, and we all know that everything on the internet is true, so can we talk about this? And it's funny just to have a conversation with somebody about Neymar. It's like, well, could the Galaxy get Neymar? How does he get into the league right now? I can answer that question. The answer is he can't. There is no team in Major League Soccer, none, not one, that can bring in Neymar right now. All right. Now, you're going to hear something. I learned a new rule today, Sophie. I didn't know this rule existed, and I know all rules that exist, except apparently I didn't know this one. It's just funny because this isn't even an MLS rule. This is a FIFA rule, and I did not know this one. But Neymar is talking about a mutual termination contract with PSG, Paris Saint-Germain. And it looks like the mutual termination could go through, right? So mutual termination means we're tearing up the contract. You're happy, I'm happy. You go where you want, we'll go and do what we want to do. After apparently they guilted him by saying, Neymar, if you leave, we're gonna have to fire people here at the club, and we're gonna have to make sure that some of the young players don't play here anymore. We're gonna have to sell them. They're like trying to guilt trip the dude into staying. I'm like, you guys are ridiculous. And somebody was pointing out, they're like, oh, so you have Neymar, Messi, and Mbappe, and you don't win anything.
I mean, I did text you and Panda.
Yeah, you did, right?
Right away.
And so I'm discussing. But here's the deal: is you, in order to come in as a free agent, which I didn't know this, after the window has closed, you had to have been a free agent before the window closed, right? Well, Neymar was not a free agent and is not a free agent. And if they tear up that contract, then he would be a free agent. But he wasn't a free agent at the time the MLS window closed, so he cannot be added into the roster or registered within Major League Soccer until January. All right. So that means that nobody's able to bring him in right now. Now, there is rumor, and I swear this is probably fake, but it would even if it's fake, it illustrates how you could possibly get Neymar if you're an MLS team. Right. And that would be, Sophie, New York City apparently said, we want Neymar.
No.
Yeah.
He's got to come to the West Coast.
Well, it's a really small field for him to flop around.
He's a Laker fan, isn't he? Doesn't he love the Lakers? Actually, he wears every shirt known to. Yeah. I mean, look, he's injury prone. Let's not, I mean, he is injury prone. However, the signing of Neymar would be massive.
Massive. I mean, listen, let's not put it in the same category as Messi. Right. And by the way,
it's close.
Yes, but it is a significance. Listen, everybody knows who the greatest player in the world is, Messi, right? I know it sounds crazy, okay? But there's for us, we know that they're close, right? We know. For a casual, there's a moat between those two, right? There is the greatest of all time.
Talent-wise, marketing-wise, I think Neymar's more fun. I think he's more charismatic. Sometimes I think Messi, I love the guy, but he's a bit of a wet blanket sometimes, isn't he?
Hey, but you know what? Kind of doesn't matter when he's just banging set pieces in like their penalty kicks.
I mean, look, let's be honest. He's saved the league's cup, hasn't he?
Yeah,
he's literally saved it single-handedly.
They now have said, this was Jorge Mas came out and tweeted this today, and then Tim Cook from Apple sort of said something after, quote tweeted it, right? Talk about the craziness that is currently Inter Miami and everything. That subscriptions to Apple's MLS season pass have doubled since Messi joined.
It's insane.
They were close to 1 million. And now they're over 2 million subscribers. And somebody was pointing it out. I thought it was really interesting. We talk about league, the MLS season pass and everything, and why geo-blocking stuff is wrong. They showed like a clip of Messi scoring for PSG, and it had 13.4 million retweets, but it's geo-blocked, so not everybody can see it. So 13.4 million people saw this tweet. And then they had another one with in a different club, but it was geo-blocked. And so, it was 7.8 million people saw this tweet. And then they showed Messi scoring for MLS, and it was 150 million people. And it's that's the difference. Whenever you don't geo-block stuff, when it's available everywhere in the world, no matter where you do it, they said 50% increase in Spanish listenership and watching whenever Inter Miami plays on the Spanish station side of things. Just crazy numbers. You bring Neymar into that, more subscriptions, everything happens, right? Yeah,
definitely. He's one of the most marketable players. Okay, forgive the Olympic diving. We all know that he's petulant and has been petulant. He's still a massive talent when fit. I think he will be a superstar here. It will light it up, and there's something about him at the edge. He's kind of seen as the bad boy, but he really isn't. And I would love to see it. And I think that when you're talking about all these different players going to Saudi Arabia, I think Messi loves that he's come here and he's running the show. You've got now Ronaldo, but there's been a bunch of players that have gone. And I believe that Messi, the same way it happened with Beckham, the same way we've seen it happen even prior to that in the Beckenbauer and Pele days, they are seeing like the American culture living here, that life. Neymar plays like that. They absolutely love it. And they'll just slot right in. And I think it would be brilliant. And I do think there's sustainability in the league now, enough to the point where there's such a culture building in all of the markets that adding these players is great for a couple years. But I think the league will be better for it, not worse for it once they go. That's my opinion.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who are like, well, what's going to happen to Inter Miami whenever they're, Messi's 2.5 years are up, playing with Inter Miami.
Someone else will come in.
I'm not concerned. The people act like having a whole bunch of eyeballs on the league and selling out games and doing all that stuff is a bad thing, even if it's interim. It's good. And yes, you're not going to convert 95% of those people. You probably convert 5% of those people, though.
Right.
And that's something, right? And so that builds. The loan deal that was sort of issued out there was that New York City was going to get Neymar, and then they were going to loan him to a Brazilian team for the rest of the year and then acquire him basically in the January transfer window. That is something that I believe all teams could do, even the LA Galaxy, if they were so inclined. I will tell you this, and here's my inside information. I don't believe the LA Galaxy see Neymar as a target. And maybe that changes because we're expecting rules changes. You were texting Baxter and I were talking about rules changes. There's a lot of rumors out there that there could be a fourth DP, that the salary cap could increase by $7 million. If there's a fourth DP, then maybe Neymar becomes something that you're like, yeah, that's a home run because you have three guys that you can rely on. And if Neymar can't get it together, you still, you have Neymar, but he's not there all the time. I think the teams that do the best with maximizing their designated players are still going to do the best in the league, and that's sort of usually how it happens. You hit on your listen. Look at Messi. You get Messi. I mean, you get Messi, and all of a sudden your team is going to go. The chances of them making the playoffs are probably higher than the LA Galaxies, and they're in a worse shape in terms of where they're sitting.
Right. And we know Messi's going to play next season.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm not being funny. If it goes well and he's fit and he's lean, he could extend. You don't know, right?
And I think that Inter Miami did the smart thing too, that those 3 U22 players that they were going after, you want to talk about longevity and what the impact of Messi means? That's those 3 U22 players could really be it.
LA Galaxy can't whiff. LAFC too. Neither team I don't think can whiff on a player like that becoming available.
It's one of those no-brainers that I think it's like you're stupid if you don't try it, right? But the problem is that hardcore fans, the people who listen to our podcast, the people who have been following the Galaxy, are going to want to stay away from that just because of the injury history and the fact that they've been burned by Giovanni Dos Santos.
I said that. Yeah, he's injury prone.
It is, and it's something there, and you're sort of like, oh man. But I'll tell you this. This should also tell you. So if he goes to LAFC, Galaxy fans are fine with that. I know they're not. I see people getting angry. Not. Gosh darn it! I see them arguing about that stuff all the time. Understand that. Sometimes you make the move. And you roll the dice. So anyway, I don't know that Neymar figures into the LA Galaxy's plans right now. I think there are some people certainly within the organization that said there's probably a lot of ways that you could spend $30 or $40 million. Maybe that would be in a different vein than Neymar. I would say the LA Galaxy seem to be becoming a club of culture, Soph, which is how does this person fit into our culture? Really interesting when you see Myoshida doing that, how they sort of talked about how he fits in, or Tony Alfaro and how he fits in, or Edwin Cerrillo, Diego Fagundez. But the only thing that worries me about Fagundez is that he was so attached to Austin and he seemed shocked by the move, and he still every time you talk to him you could sort of see that he was still sort of going through that mourning. Having said that,
he'll have a chip on his shoulder, maybe.
I think there will be. But he's also mourning that loss, and you can tell that. So, I mean, how does that sort of put itself? But together, culture-wise, Fagundez fits in exactly the way that they want him. Fits in with Boyd, fits in with, you just see the culture. And I wonder if Neymar, if they abandon culture to go after somebody like Neymar instead of finding somebody that fits within that culture. It's certainly going to be
depends who you're talking about co-presidents, maybe, I read someone in chat saying a president should be able to pick their own coach. If there's change coming, who knows? I mean, Messi became captain immediately of Inter Miami. A player like Neymar comes in, he becomes the culture.
Well, and
are you willing to take that risk?
What do you think, though? I mean, when we talk about Inter Miami and all the things, I just highlighted the U22 moves. What was the other? Tata Martino was a big move for that too, right?
Exactly.
So
that would never have come together without Tata Martino.
There you go.
You know it. And look, you got Alba, you got Busquets. They could win MLS next season.
Could. Could fall flat on their face too.
Could they
with
get
all
to
those guys.
Could they get to the playoffs? I don't know.
They might win Leagues Cup and Open Cup just that way. Just to put that, they could be going for a treble if they could make the playoffs. Last Optimism gave us a $5 super chat, a little late joining for me tonight, but thanks for all you guys do. I'll definitely watch replay. Thank you for that. We appreciate it. I think that's it. LA Galaxy don't play again until August 20th. We'll keep you updated on all that stuff. We will be back on Monday. Kevin Baxter back in country by Monday as well. I think he comes in Thursday. Let's see. Oh, today's Thursday. Maybe he landed. He'd probably be screwed up for the next 3 days though with all the time change and everything. So he'll be back to not being in the future. So we plan on having a show on Monday, and we'll continue to talk about whatever there is to talk about. So that's what we sit and how we do it. Miss Soph, I certainly appreciate you joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure. Absolutely smashed it. And once again, walking away with a couple of little nuggets of my LA Galaxy education from Josh.
That's what we want to be. We want to be like McDonald's. Give you a 6-piece little nuggets, 6 pieces of nuggets for your time. Right?
Oh, I do love. Everyone can have their canes and everything. A good old fashioned on a road trip, McDonald's nuggets, because literally an hour after eating them, they're going to repeat on you for sure, but it will be worth it. That sweet and sour sauce, just perfection.
I salute you and your nuggets. Absolutely appreciate it. All right, here is why don't you tell people where they can find you? Let's see if I can hit the right button this time as we go out of the show instead of screwing it up. All right. Tell people where they can find you.
I'm pretty certain that you're going to hit the right button. Thanks for having me, everyone. Thanks, and to everyone in chat. Hope you're having an epic summer. Stay healthy. Be happy. And at Highbury Squad, give us a shot. Premier League starts tomorrow. Jesus, not next week. It's tomorrow. I'm just going to go to bed. All that travel's caught up with me.
That sounds good. Thanks, Soph. We certainly appreciate it. If you're looking for me on Twitter, it's at Guesman, at Galaxy Podcast, on Threads at Galaxy Podcast. Of course, you can head on over to cornerofthegalaxy.com for all of our shows, stuff on there. Shout out to Mike Gray and Alex Ruiz, no longer working for the Striker. But I have a feeling that those two guys will be back doing something very certainly not with me.
I agree with that.
Although I'd love to have them, but I have a feeling they're going to be doing something special. So keep an eye on those guys, and we love you both. All right, that does it for Miss Sophie the Cannon Nicholaou. I'm Josh Pato Guesman. You've been listening, you've been watching to Corner of the Galaxy on cornerofthegalaxy.com. Have a great one, everybody.
You've been listening to the Corner of the Galaxy podcast on cornerofthegalaxy.com. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Galaxy Podcast, and be sure to check out and subscribe to iTunes, Stitcher, and Facebook by searching for Corner of the Galaxy. Fans, we thank you for listening, and we ask that you be kind and courteous to your neighbors as you leave the podcast. We thank you for joining us and look forward to seeing you again. Until then, I'm Michael Araujo, and on behalf of the entire Corner of the Galaxy crew, goodbye, everybody.